Ooh, it's the spookiest time of the day. Lunchtime. I think I like horror. Do you know what I liked? I liked A.M. Shine's The Watchers. I liked that book. I thought it was creepy, and that was more of like a horror mystery. He has another book out called The Creeper. It was fun. It was entertaining, but it wasn't as good as The Watchers. The Watchers is great. And then there's also Alien, which is one of my favorite movies. So I like sci-fi horror. Speaking of sci-fi horror, I also enjoyed Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. I also like classic grey aliens and like abductions and stuff. I think that can be very creepy if done well. Earlier this year, I read The Sleepless by Nusa Onoa, and that's like one of my favorite books now, and that's a horror, and it has a lot of things that I thought that I didn't want, specifically gore and like violence against children and animals. But like in there, it wasn't gratuitous. It wasn't just in there for like shock value. There was a reason. I think I do like horror. Here's my wish list for my perfect horror. Number 1, no gore, no excessive violence, and no like shocking imagery. Which is crazy because that's horror, isn't it? Number 2 on my wish list is I don't think I would mind. I don't think I've read one, but like I wouldn't mind like a really actiony, thrilling horror, you know, running away from a thing. I say that, but Alien, I love Alien. Alien is one of my favorite movies of all time. I rewatch it, but I do not like aliens. I kind of hate it, and that kind of became more actiony and thrillery. So I don't know about that one. We'll see. Number 3 is I would prefer like a creepy mystery horror, like A.M. Shine's The Watchers. I really loved that. The mystery in that book came mostly from our main character, who found herself in such a weird situation. We're like, what is going on? Oh my god, what's happening? I would love that a lot. Number 4 on my wish list is no ghosts. They do nothing for me. Maybe I just haven't found the ghost of my dream, you know? But like they just do nothing for me. Do you know what maybe has desensitized me? I think maybe it's like Supernatural. I've been rewatching Supernatural recently, and seasons 8 and 9 are the best seasons. They're so good. I have not gone back to watch seasons 1 to 5 because I'm not going back to the early 2000s. Sorry. 10 is also good, but 8 and 9, sublime. And then finally on my wish list, no psychological horror. Like I just find it boring. I liked Get Out, but like that's it. So anyway, I'm gonna read some horror books. I think they're horror books to see if I do actually like this genre, which I think I do. So I'm like 20% into Bone White. And first of all, I don't know if this is even a horror. I genuinely don't know. There's some like creepy things happening, I think. Bone White has a man, Joe Mallory. Joe Mallory walks into a diner and he is covered in blood. His beard, he looks scruffy and starved. You know, he's frostbitten. He looks like he's been living in the wilds. He's giving Unabomber. He's slaying the Unabomber look, basically. And he walks in, orders a cup of hot chocolate. They give him his hot chocolate, right? He gets recognized by some people. This is a small town in Alaska, by the way. He gets recognized by some people who's like, is that Joe Mallory? You know, I think his family they were a little bit like away from town, but like, you know, people know him. And so someone comes up to him and is like, Joe, is that you? And he kind of confirms that it is. And then Joseph says, call the local law enforcement to call the bigger local law enforcement so they can come over because I've killed some people and I buried them in the forest. I'll be waiting by the church. So, you know, bigger law enforcement comes and they check and like, yep, he did bury people where he said he buried people. So that's how the book starts. And then, you know, we're kind of just like plodding along now. We've now met somebody who might be the twin brother of a potential victim, one of Joe's victims. Joe's acting very weird. Like the situation is very strange. And, you know, there's something in the woods, there's something in the forest that the dogs are afraid of. And the locals are also not saying a lot, you know, so they're like the makings of a creepy story, but like it's just so slow. Like I understand building dread and anticipation and tension, but that's not what this is doing. A lot of this is just like background information about the brother of the potential victim I mentioned. So we get introduced to him, and then in that scene we get background information about him and his brother, and then we get another entire chapter of more background information. And I'm like, I get it. Like I got it. It's just so plodding and slow, and now he's meeting up with an ex-girlfriend and they're discussing it, and I'm just like, oh my god. Some other things have happened, I guess, like pertaining to Joe and the murders, and things, creepy things are being revealed, I guess. But I'm just like, I'm just like not feeling it. And the thing with me is like I've never had the experience with all of my favorite books and just books that I like in general. All of my favorite books, I like them from the first word, from the beginning. I was in it. I've never had the experience where like a book is like this slow and plodding, and I'm like, oh, and we're like 20% in, and I feel like the book hasn't started yet, and I'm just like, but then all of a sudden something happens and it's my favorite book of all time. That has never happened. That has never happened. If I like a book, I like it immediately. I think the other thing is that, like, what's the mystery in this book? There's no intrigue, right? Like, the mystery, I suppose, is like, why did Joe kill these people? I guess possibly. Does it have anything to do with the creepy things in the forest that the dogs are afraid of, or what's going on in this house that the police are looking at? I guess that's like the mystery and the intrigue, but it's just not, you know it's not that interesting. I don't know. Is this a horror? Anyway, I'm just like bored. It's just way too slow for me, and I'm gonna move on to Nestlings now. Do you know what I was thinking the whole time I was watching this? I was like, the fact that this is taking place in suburbia, number one. I don't know, man. An alien abduction in suburbia is weird. You need a farmhouse, a nice isolated farmhouse, a field of maize outside for the aliens to hide in and for them to make their little marks or whatever it is they do. Like, I'm basically describing science. Basically, I wish this movie was science. It was not good. It wasn't even scary. And also cheesy, and also like too well lit. Lighting is like too flat and like bright for it to be scary. And like it's in a suburban neighborhood. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And I think the biggest issue with it is that it's just a reskinned ghost story. Like, there's nothing. You could have replaced the aliens in this with ghosts, and like, it would have worked. It was fine. I should have just rewatched Signs. No one dies. None of the children died, which is good. I was worried about that the whole time. I was like, I don't want to watch children be killed. I don't want to watch that. I don't want to see that. So that's great. But also, it's like, this is supposed to be a horror movie. Like, what is going on? Anyway, I don't know, man. 4 out of 10. I don't know. Well, good morning. I retwisted my hair. That's why it's in perm rods. I'll give the sleep that I slept in these perm rods a solid 4 out of 10. Could have been better. I'm here for a status report. I did not like the first 3 horror picks. So Bone White, I told you, was too slow. There was no intrigue. Then I tried to read Nestlings, and that one is set in New York. And like, that can't be creepy for me. Like, I need the isolation. Like I said in the movie, I need the farmhouse. Like, the only place worse than suburbia for a setting for a horror for me is New York. Like, I cannot be scared when I think of like sirens and hooting and the fact that you're surrounded by people. Nestlings is about a couple who win a flat in a lottery. I don't know if that's a real thing, but it happens in this, and this apartment is creepy. There's like a prologue in which somebody eats a cockroach. Okay, all right. This, apart from the setting, but the setting was the biggest thing. The writing style of this is too conversational for me. It's too like casual. I needed to be like a little bit more grave. I felt like I was reading a contemporary novel. And also the setting, there was like a lot of New York stuff. There was like a point in which the male main character will stop in the middle of the street and wax poetic about New York. It's a city, it smells like piss. There are rats everywhere. Like, relax. Relax. But Sallow Bend kind of has that like isolation. It has the setting going for it. And the writing is what I wanted. The writing style is like grave, it's not conversational. You know what I mean? Things kind of get going almost immediately. A child is missing, goes missing in a town, the town is called Sallow. So it's doing all of the things that I say I want, but I still didn't like this one. Like I was still bored in this. And that's when I realized that at the base of all of these, the thing that I don't like is that they're set in our world, in the real world. So for most of the book, you're basically reading a contemporary with all of the pedestrian, mundane stuff that comes with it. I don't read contemporary novels for that because I'm bored, because I'm bored by them. So for most of the book, you're reading about people going about their normal lives, and then maybe a creepy thing happens at the end, or maybe some creepy things are sprinkled throughout. And that's a problem for me. When I'm reading a book, I really need the creative sectors of my brain, whatever they are, to be like straining, to be working hard, trying to picture what you're describing to me, whether it's the world and the people, whatever. Otherwise my brain wanders. Otherwise if you're making me sit there read about a normal boring Anglo North American couple doing normal boring stuff, my brain is wandering. I need to be getting tired reading a book, but in a fun way. Like, it has to be creative, imaginative, inventive. I have to be like, huh? What's going on? I need that in a book. Otherwise it's not holding my attention, and that's the problem. So I thought to myself, okay, fantasy and science fiction horror. Duh, of course. I like science fiction, and I'm kind of in my fantasy era this year. So that's what I'm gonna try and read next. Maybe a T. Kingfisher. I like T. Kingfisher's like two fantasy novels I liked one and I loved the other one. We'll see. My hair will be free from perm rod jail when I see you next. Look who it is. It's me. I'm back with an update. The worst thing about autumn and winter, well, apart from the cold, obviously the cold is the worst thing, is how long the nights are. And this is coming from someone who is a night owl. So, fantasy horror. I might read T. Kingfisher. I did. I tried to read The Hollow Places. And I don't know. The Hollow Places is about two people who find themselves in like a weird world, and we don't know how they're gonna escape. It's very weird and spooky. I did enjoy the world itself. I thought it was interesting and creative. Like, I enjoyed reading this also, but the tone of this was weird. This is like, just a fun little comedy fantasy story. It's like, what is the name of that book? Sword Heart. Like how in Sword Heart there was that part also with the forest, the creepy forest. I wasn't like spooked. I was enjoying the story enough, but I think this would work better as a novella because I was like tired. Like, I stopped reading this just because I was tired. And also, I've learned another thing about horror, that I need to feel sorry for the characters. I didn't feel sorry for these characters. They like walked into the situation. Like, I need for our characters to be in a scary, creepy situation because of forces beyond their control. Or maybe they do make decisions that land them in that situation, but they're kind of forced to, but like it's like a rock and a hard place type of decision. Like, it has to be it can't just be, oh, let's go do this thing, and then they do the thing and it's like, oh, whoops. And that is the case in the two horror books that I've loved, A.M. Shine's The Watchers and Nuzo Ono's The Sleepless. Like, in The Sleepless, the main character as a child, the ultimate helplessness, and in The Watchers also that main character just that situation, like, damn, she didn't walk into that situation, it just happened to her. I think I prefer that because helplessness is horror in itself. Like, just as somebody who values like agency and independence, just being completely helpless, oh my god, horrific. So this didn't have that, and it resulted in me just not feeling sorry for these characters and therefore just like not caring. It is creepy, I guess. Was I scared? Was I spooked? Was I shaking? Was I shivering? Was I afraid to sleep with the light off? No. And again, I don't think I've mentioned this before in this video, but I am a scaredy cat. Last year or 2 years ago, I don't know. Like, time just does not exist for me anymore. Anyway, last year or 2 years ago, I watched what's that guy's name? Lemino's, his freaking Jack the Ripper documentary. I watched that and I was living in fear for 2 weeks afterwards. Like, my friends are like, he's not a vampire. Like, you're fine. Like, I'm scared. I understand that, but I'm still scared. Like, I'm afraid. I was terrified. So I'm like a huge scaredy cat. So if I say something is not scaring me, like, it's not, you know? Like, when people were like, oh, you can watch Mithrigan, you know, the creepy robot girl, dancing girl. Remember that shit? I saw the trailer. I was like, nah, this is scary. Sorry. Like, this will scare me. Anyway, so yeah, that was that. I didn't finish this because didn't care. Would have been great as a novella. Speaking of novellas, for the science fiction horror, I picked up The Scourge Between the Stars and I actually did finish this one. This book is basically Alien slash Aliens, like a combination of those two movies. Like, just literally, is that, like, that's just it. Like, that's it. Like, I was reading this and I was like hoping and expecting it to go somewhere different, to like do something else, but it just kept on being aliens. It was like, oh, okay. Cool. I gave this like 3 stars. It was, you know, some interesting things do happen, but like, it's alien slash aliens, and I love Alien. I don't like Aliens. Alien is one of my favorite movies ever. So I was like, okay, like, I could have just rewatched Alien. Like, if we were gonna, like, if I knew it was gonna be this. Anyway, I think that's also why I didn't find this like that spooky. But it was short, you know, short and sweet. Didn't overstay its welcome. Some interesting reveals happened that were kind of interesting, but like, you know, it's Alien. Okay, so this last book, remember how at the beginning of this video I was like, I don't want to read psychological horror. I didn't think I'm just not interested in psychological horror. I watched Get Out and I'm like, that. Remember that's what I sound like. Yeah, this is my favorite book of this entire like experiment or whatever, and this is a 9 out of 10 book. Like, this is so good. I read that book, by the way, because of Chanel. Shout out Chanel chapters, and also Prim Reads also enjoyed that book. Chanel and I don't have a lot of like overlapping taste in books, and she really enjoyed this book, and Prim and I do have a lot of overlap, and he enjoyed it, so you know, you probably will like it. Crazy how the most successful book of this video is a psychological horror. Maybe existential also. I don't know. Cosmic? I don't know. This is a fantastic, great little novella about a devout Mormon man who is shocked to find himself in the hell of the one true religion, which is Zoroastrianism. In this hell, you get like specific hells. We're not told what they all are, but like, you know, there's a demon at the beginning. I was like, you can go over there. You can go over there. And our Mormon man, he gets sent to a book hell, which at first you're like, that's not that bad. Then when you learn more about it, you're like, oh my God, this is awful. This is such like an engrossing little book that does not overstay its welcome. It comes in, it does what it needs to do, and then leaves. I loved it. There were also like a lot of interesting ideas in this as well, a lot of commentary on things. My favorite thing was our main character. This is told in first person, and he keeps saying, do I pray for forgiveness or whatever, but like, why would I worship this God who will send me to hell? And it's like, you were okay with your Christian God sending people to hell. Like, you were fine with that. You were okay because you thought you were going to be in heaven praising God forever or whatever it is people think is going to happen in heaven. You were okay with that, but like, now that the shoe's on the other foot, now it's a problem. Now it's like, why would I worship a God and praise and worship a God who would cause this suffering? Like, you were fine with it. You were okay. I think the demon at the beginning also makes that point to someone else. It's fun. This is great. It's a great book. What have we learned from this experiment? Do I even like horror? Yes. I guess I have to read more psychological horror or cosmic horror or existential horror. I don't know what this is, because that was the most interesting book and the most fun and actually the most horrifying and scary. I don't know, man. Maybe it's just my selection. I don't know. This was worth it just to read A Short Stay in Hell because that was fun.